Namaste, my friends. This is Jack Colley's Black Book. We're on episode 27, and we're starting page 4 of the Black Book. And when I look at the topics and the ideas that I threw on page 4, it had to do with with racism. It had to do with the labels that we put on each other. It had to do with the reality of how we have evolved or how we were created, which is to look at individuals who are different than us and assess them and value them and in a way judge them. And there's also a statement on page 4 about, the difference between judging something versus judging something's value, and how, even there may even be a distinction there. So I thought to kind of kick this off with the election season quickly approaching. Actually, I think we would say we're probably in the thick of the election season. So with the national election coming in November and kind of working our way up to that, I thought it might be interesting to kind of dive into that and share with you some things that I share with my psychology students, particularly about how we can avoid labels and we can avoid categorizing people, and we can avoid this us versus them mentality. I think that there is a lot of importance in looking in groups of people who we consider kind of opposite of ourselves, those on the other side, you might put it that way, and how sometimes there's value to seeing the value. There's value in seeing the value of the other side. We'll put it that way. So we are back to yin yang, because this is how I want to frame this. The importance of the interplay, the importance of the tension between yin and yang, and where we exist in yin and yang to experience the most growth as human beings, to become the most humane, if you will. And I would like to talk about red versus blue, and specifically we're going to talk about liberal and conservative. We're going to think about these labels that are thrown around frequently right now, these labels we put on individuals and on groups of people. And I would like to show how where we exist in yin-yang is going to determine how we function and how humane we are and how kind we are to others, how we can express love to others and unconditional positive regard to others, regardless of what we might believe about different political positions. So that's kind of where we're going here. So I want to share, let's go here first. Let's look at the word liberal, because it seems that, people who are liberal are often demonized by conservatives. And then, of course, vice versa, it works the opposite way too. So we'll get to that in a minute. But what I have challenged my college students to do is, instead of utilizing these loaded terms for other human beings that don't agree with us, that we might come up with some synonyms. And so I have looked up, I had AI through Google, I had AI generate a list of synonyms for liberal. And I want you to look at some of these synonyms. So for liberal, we have progressive, we have modern, creative, contemporary, and accepting. And when I look at these synonyms for liberal, I see a lot of really good things that we need to be as human beings. We need to be progressive. We need to push things forward. We need to grow. There are things that we need to do. We need to be modern. We don't want to live entirely in the past. We love our modern conveniences, things like that. We want to continue to create, problem solve. We want to be contemporary. We want to be accepting of others. We want to have a worldview that expands and makes more room for others. So I want you to kind of hold some of those synonyms for your liberal friends in your mind if you are a conservative. And now, my liberal friends, I would like you to look at some of these synonyms that AI came up with for conservatives. Tradition. Conservatives are traditional. Think about the traditions in your life, whether it's a religious tradition, whether it's traditions around holidays, uh, traditions around birthdays, different stages of life. Traditions are really important. I'm thinking one tradition that just came to mind is quinceanera. That type of a tradition where we keep these traditions alive because it's very important to how we remember and how we process different stages of life. Protectors. I look at somebody who is conservative as conserving something, protecting it. And we know that that is an important concept for us to do as human beings is to protect the past, protect what we have in place now. There's a looking back, there's a certain wisdom that we can gain from learning from our mistakes and keeping things historically accurate, which I think is important to both sides of the debate right now, is the importance of keeping history accurate. There's an orthodox. I don't think orthodox is a bad word, but there is this idea that if something works well, why change it? Why do we have to question even the status quo if it is working? Now, granted, our liberal friends, our more creative friends might come in and they might be able to see something better about changing the status quo. So there's this constant tension and this flux between yin and yang, between conservative and liberal, between being traditional and being creative, between being wise and at the same time, problem solving and coming up with new and better ways to do things. There's this dance between yin and yang that I think we would find value in if we really took the time to view other people on the opposite side of our political platform, if we could view some of what they're doing as having value, and not only as having value, but as being incredibly necessary. So I will make the argument that my conservative friends, you cannot exist and you will not grow if it weren't for liberals. And my liberal friends, I will make the argument that you cannot exist and you cannot grow without our conservative friends. And we have to learn how to do that dance gracefully. Now, there are some concerns. So one of the things that I have noticed are when we go to the extreme ends of these spectrums, these ends of the spectrum where liberals will look at conservatives and they will just demonize them and not see anything good about them. What we often get is we get this attitude that if only we destroyed mankind, the earth would be, go back to this Garden of Eden state. And you'll hear this kind of come up, as we try to get rid of human beings, because they're horrible for the environment and things like that. And there's a lot of truth and things that we have to consider about that. But that would be going to this extreme end of things where we're just going to end humanity for the sake of, ushering in some sort of paradise. And then on the other side of the extreme, of course, when conservatism often gets out of control among, between different groups, conservatism often gets out of control in the manner of Nazis and Auschwitz, or the rape of Nanking, or some of these institutions and some of these events where people are tortured. I mean, torture devices, where people come up with ways to torture each other and create pain for the sake of creating pain. All of this happens at the ends of these political extremes, and we're starting to see that. We're starting to see that more and more. We have to be very, very. We have to be very cautious of that. As a starter, there's a lot more we can unpack here that we're going to, but just as a starter, I think the challenge for today is consider how we might move back to the middle. And it's not so much moving back to the middle as maybe a better way of saying is how can we avoid the extreme ends of these spectrums where we get to a point where we're so far to the right and so far to the left that we have lost sight of the value of the people on the other side of the spectrum or of the continuum. And so please keep that in mind. Keep this in mind, this idea of conservatives being tradition, orthodox, protectors, keepers of history, wisdom, and liberals. Maybe instead of calling people liberals, we look at them as being progressives, helping to drive us forward. Modern, maybe unconventional, but still creative. So let's start using some different verbiage that isn't so politically charged as we think about and talk about our friends. All right. Namaste, my friends.